Welcome to
Chat from the Peak,
where God's favorites link up. My name is Lara.
My name is Memi.
And we are the founders of Marriage Pinnacle, and this is Chats from the Peak.
Welcome.
So, again, we always start off with just, describing a little bit what Marriage Pinnacle is. So it's our marriage support platform where we really target couples of color, millennial couples of color, and we really promote resources, coaching, personalized education, to personalized support to really push healthy, strong marriages. That really is the premise that we stand on.
Yep. Mm-hmm. And strong marriages are the cornerstone of strong families, and strong families are the cornerstone of strong communities. So that is really our mission, is really strengthening families, strengthening communities through marriage work.
Yeah. So. And so, not begrudgingly, but we used to do a lot of IG lives on various topics, and we felt like the direction we were moving to, it was something that that was always on our heart, was to start a podcast. It was going to be definitely more audio, but here we are having the visual component, and so on Chats from the Peak, it's just going to be various topics about things that couples really do go through. So you'll hear everything from finances to boundaries, communication. In today's episode, which is, I think, a little controversial.
A little?
Yeah.
Especially nowadays. It's very controversial now.
Which I don't think it should be. But today's topic is on submission. So we're going to be talking about submission today, and what our views are on it, and then also why we believe it is an important principle to have in marriage. And so that's what today's episode is going to be about. If this is your first time joining us, we hope that you'll stay tuned. If you're a peak seeker, we thank you guys for joining us again for another episode. Always remember to like, comment, and subscribe. And that's the only way that we know that we're doing something that you guys want. Letting us know, getting us feedback, hitting us up on any of our platforms, IG, TikTok, Twitter, Facebook, all the platforms, letting us know. And obviously we have a website, www.marriagepinnacle.com, and then @marriagepinnacle on all the other social media platforms. Yeah. So if this is your first time joining us, we typically do internet chokeholds, and that's just a way to keep our ears to the streets. And we kind of talk about our overall topic. We kind of hear how it's being discussed in the media. That could be the good, the bad, whatever perspective. We kind of bring it here, talk about it a little bit, and then really dive into the meat of it in Relationship Gems. So you want to kick us off?
I think that was good.
Yeah.
And also, we also do listener letters.
Oh yeah, that's right.
But we need some submissions, guys.
Come on now.
We're running dry, so we need y'all to send us any questions you have, any ideas you have, anything you need clarity on, anything that you've heard us talk about or you want us to talk about, and you just have a question. It could be a personal question. It could be a general question. Send it to info@marriagepinnacle.com. Or you can send it through our website, or you can DM us on any of our platforms.
Yeah. And all of our listener letters are confidential. They remain anonymous. We typically will give you a little stage name, but obviously the details and all of that is kept confidential. So send those in. We'll try to plug it into an episode that makes sense, and read it and try to give you the best support as possible. So kick us off from our perspective, obviously. Yes. So kick us off with the streets talking about.
Okay, so today my question for Lara is, does submission have bad press? Because one of our things with having a podcast is that everyone seems to have a podcast. Yeah. So we hear podcast bros and podcast sisters talking about submission and how it is mandatory and how women should do this and should do that. And women are either on, it's very divided. Like it's either women are like, I love to serve at the feet of my man, or it's like, oh, ain't no man telling me what to do. So it's like, what is
very polar?
It's polar. Very divisive topic. So my question is, what are we getting wrong about submission? Can submission be good if done well, and healthy if done right? Right. And also, what is the negativity around it? You know, so
that's like a lot of that could carry us through the whole episode.
It's a very juicy topic.
So I feel like definitely, as far as like internet chokeholds, I feel like submission does have it. When you hear submission, it literally, like you said, it's stark contrast, like with when you hear it. I feel like the internet bros, we're not putting nobody out there, like. So my issue with submission in like podcasts and like
in pop culture, kind of like how pop culture addresses it,
is that, to me, I don't believe submission is coming from like the real root of where it's supposed to come from. Like, to me, submission is biblical, right? It's a biblical concept, hands down.
That is taken out of context.
And like, unfortunately, when you hear the word submission, you automatically look at like superior, inferior, person in authority, person not in authority. And I think people, women, can look at it from the perspective of, you know, ain't no man telling me what to do. And a man is like, but you're supposed to submit. And a lot of times, I'm not saying all, when I hear it come up in social media, it is typically somebody who ain't married telling the world why he thinks his girl should be doing X, Y, and Z for him. Again, like I say, I stand to be corrected. I know there are a lot of platforms where, you know, there are people who are talking about it from the perspective that they are talking about from the correct perspective. But I think when it gets such a bad rap, it's because it's a guy talking about like, oh yeah, my girl's supposed to be doing X, Y, and Z for me, but you're not even married. What are you saying to me?
And I think so many people just have submission really messed up. Like, I think the definition, like me personally, when I hear submission, it gives me the heebie-jeebies. I'm like, I don't want nobody telling me what to do. Like, that is, like, that will tell you, like, that I have a little rebellious spirit in me.
Girl.
Yeah, a little bit.
Girl, you've been married 11 years, so you've been submitting for 11 years. Let's be clear.
You know, but it wasn't until me and Laura were kind of having this, because me and Laura talk about this a lot. So it wasn't until we were talking about it like a couple of weeks ago. You're like, Mommy, you're submissive. And I'm like, no, I'm not.
Yes,
and you're like, yes, you are. And then, so that's why this is a topic today, because I love how she kind of broke it down to me, what submission really is. Because honestly, when I think of submission, I think of a woman that doesn't have a mind of her own, a woman that is not capable, a woman that is not given a lot of respect, that she is just expected to do as her husband says. She doesn't have any opinions, she doesn't have any input. And I've never seen myself as that woman. I wasn't raised in a household with that type of mother. My mother is not that type of mother. My mother would tell everyone, like, your husband is the head, that's cool, but the wife is the neck. Which are the facts. Yeah.
Which are the facts.
My mom was always going to tell you that. And so to me, growing up in the church, in a Nigerian church, I was never like, that's not what we heard from the pulpit about submission. And at least that's not what I translated it to be. You know, and so, but I feel like when Lara really broke it down to me, I realized that we and I don't know if it's us or just the way things have society evolved, right? But I feel like submission and gender roles have been intertwined.
Yeah, for sure.
So someone like watch Jazzy, the girl, Cam Newton's girlfriend.
So
she was on. She was on the Lovers and Friends podcast with Shan.
I love her.
I don't say her name. Shan Boodram. I think. So she was on her podcast, and this is old. So this was like a year ago. But it was so triggering for me because the title was called "Being Submissive to My Man."
Yeah. Okay.
And her whole thing was that, oh, I just anticipate his needs. I'm his mind reader. I scratch his back until he falls asleep, and I know his breath pattern so that when he stops breathing, when his breath pattern changes, then I know I can stop rubbing his back. And like I pack his bag, I make sure he's fed, and you know what I'm saying? Like, no shade. Like, I love, like, if you love, if you find joy in that, I respect that. I really do. Definitely. And I think that's super cool. Like, a woman that gets her life from taking care of other people. I think that's lovely. But I think where the disconnect is for me is, if that is what submission is, if that's how submission is defined, then I'm not submissive. Not submissive. So does that mean I'm a bad wife? Does that mean that I'm not doing what I'm supposed to do? Does that mean I'm not living according to what God wants a wife to do? So it's like that confusion for me. That was always confusing for me. And I would always just be like, well, I guess I'm not submissive, because my husband, he cooks, he cleans, he takes care of kids, he helps me. We're very equal in the house. So I like, we both go to work, we both bring home good money. So it was kind of like, oh, I'm not, submission is not for me. And it wasn't until having this conversation where I'm like, okay, so I think we're talking about gender roles, like patriarchal gender roles. The wife is home with the kid. The wife makes sure that the house is taken care of. The husband goes to work. He pays the bills. He's the financial leader. And that is where the authority comes from. The authority comes from him being the provider. So he has the final say. But Lara, break it down to us. How you broke it down to me.
So, I'll try my best. So for me, again, because I believe that submission is spiritual. It's a biblical principle. And so, you know, it's a pretty famous scripture. What is it? Ephesians 5:20. I think it even starts at 21. 5:20. So 5:21, and further submit to one another out of reverence for Christ. So people,
they always skip that part.
Don't start there. Start at 21.
They always skip that part. And
further, submit to one another out of reverence for Christ. For wives, this means submit to your husbands as to the Lord. For a husband is the head of the wife, as Christ is the head of the church. He's the savior of his body, the church. As the church submits to Christ, so should wives submit to your husbands. For husbands, this means love your wives just as Christ loved the church. He gave up his life for her to make her holy and clean, washed by the cleansing of God's word. Okay, so let's even start there, right?
And I want to caveat real quick, everyone. I know we have some peak seekers that are not Christians and not believers, and we are just making sure that it's clear we're talking about submission in the context of Christianity. Because that is our experience. That's our lived experience. We're Christians and we're raised Christians. So I do say, if you have another holy text that you refer to, I would suggest you go there and study what submission is and what that looks like in the context of your religion or your culture.
But for us, this is what we talk about.
This is what we're talking about here.
So
and feel free to join us.
I mean, hello. But so obviously, like, again, I think people see, oh, wives, submit to your husband, blah blah blah. But submission is not subjugation. Like, it's a difference, right?
Subjugation is kind of a big word, so let's break that down.
Subjugation is like kind of like oppression. Like, like master slave. Like, that's not what we're talking about here. Because you submit does not mean you're under somebody's authority. Yes, you are under somebody's authority. But the thing is with submission is that it's selflessness, right? And ultimately, if you are submitted to your husband and your husband is submitted to God, then there is complete alignment. The thing is, you're in authority, somebody's in authority over you, and then that person is under authority of somebody else. And so everyone is submitting in this case. So anytime I hear, oh, my girl doesn't submit to me, who are you submitted to, sir? Like, don't even let me get upset here, because my thing is, like, if you are being submissive, that means you are under someone's authority. And we all are under someone's authority. Do you get what I'm saying? And so, like, and the thing is, submission is not about me. When you're submissive, you are literally dying to your flesh. You are saying, it's not about me, it's about my relationship. So if my relationship, and if I have the head, the husband, and my head is telling me that we're doing this, the body should follow, right? So great example what your mom says, like the body cannot move without, that's absolutely facts. The head cannot move without the body. And if you think about it, the body is massive, right?
The body kind of runs it.
The body technically runs the show, but the head has the eyes. You know, and I always think about it like when you think about like an army, right? The leader will send the troops forward and say, okay, scan the land, do all of this stuff, and then come back and report, and then make a final decision, right? So the input of the troops is necessary. It's important. It's imperative. It's the same thing in a relationship, right? Our say as the women, as the wives in the relationship, is important when it comes to the husband's final say. And ultimately, if the husband is not considering what the wife is saying, that means he doesn't love he doesn't love the body.
Right, correct.
It should not only be his eyes that he's concerned about. He should be concerned about the entire body. And you think about it, like if as we submit to our husbands, the reverse says that the husband loves us like that Christ loves the church. What did Christ do ultimately? He died for us.
Sacrifice.
He died.
So I think the bottom line is the love.
Yeah, it's
and I think a lot of time when people talk about submission, like you said, it's that negative connotation. It comes from a place of like you're thinking about like the battered woman, and you're thinking about like abuse, but it's like it's supposed to be loving.
It's supposed to be selfless.
It's supposed to be selfless.
It's supposed to be selfless. Like I am supposed to be. You're like, if I am submitting to you, it's like, and you know, we've talked about this so many times, like it's, and for me, and I know when we talked about this, to digress just a little bit, you know, you always say, oh, I don't know if I'm submissive, blah, blah, blah. And I've always came from the standpoint where I find it very easy to submit. And that's because, again, I have trust. Now, I don't think trust and submission are synonymous, but I do think that they're heavily intertwined.
I think.
It's heavily intertwined. And I feel like that is probably where a lot of kind of concerns and issues come with, or when people are triggered by the word submissiveness or being submissive, is because they're triggered from a place of maybe trauma. You know what I'm saying? Because again, it takes a lot to be selfless, right? It takes a lot to say, you know what? Because this is a decision you want to make, I'm going to respect it. I'm going to honor it. And again, it's not about gender roles, right? And oftentimes I think they are viewed together, like, oh,
they are.
But no, because the thing is, just because I decide to be the provider or the caretaker or whatever the case may be, that does not mean, like, prime example, like if you are the breadwinner, so the wife is the breadwinner, yes, I would find it very, if you equate submission to gender roles, I would understand why it's difficult to say, why am I submitting to somebody when I'm the breadwinner? But it's
because you're thinking about gender roles.
Because you're thinking about gender roles. Like, oh, I do this, I do that, or I'm an equal partner or equal contributor to this household. Why should I have less of a say?
Correct.
Why should I have less of a say, or I should have equal say to my partner if we're doing the same thing? Like, he's not the breadwinner, blah, blah, blah. And I think that's that patriarchal, like almost misogynistic viewpoint where submission has nothing to do with gender roles. Like, it has nothing to do with, do you know what I'm saying? Like, it has nothing to do with whether you earn more or earn less, whether you're the caretaker, whether you take care of the kids or the home or whatever the case may be. It's separate.
It's just simply saying that when I get on an airplane and we're flying from here to California, here to wherever, there's one pilot.
Yeah, that's it.
There's one dude in charge of that plane. There's co-pilots.
There could be co-pilots.
Flight attendants. There's a whole staff of people that get that plane from A to B.
But
there's
ultimately,
one pilot.
There's one pilot.
So I think if you think of submission in that mindset, the pilot cannot really do his job without the co-pilot.
Absolutely.
You're not allowed to fly a plane by yourself, I don't think, like a big plane. But you need a co-pilot. It's necessary. But at the end of the day, the pilot has the pilot makes the final decision, but he's going to ask his co-pilot, like, what you think about this?
Yeah,
or
that's good.
Should we do this or should we do that?
Yeah.
But there's a respect, a mutual respect between the two of them. There's trust between the two of them. The pilot trusts the co-pilot trusts the pilot. But at the end of the day, the pilot is responsible for getting everyone on that plane from point A to point B. That is his job. And I think if we look at submission from that lens, it makes a lot more sense. Because I realize, like, I am kind of submissive.
Right.
Because I fully
trust.
I'm the girl that when I'm with my man, I don't know what I'm like. I'm not crossing the street. Like, look both ways for what?
You've already done it.
He already looked both ways for us.
And that literally, like, I love that example.
He's done that.
I love that example because that's literally submission,
That's
right?
it.
You trust him.
My brain goes off.
That is submission.
Lights out.
You know, not lights out. Not lights out. It's literally, that is submission, where like you trust your husband's judgment enough that you do not have to look both ways because you know your husband has done it.
Because I know he's doing it. Yeah.
And vice versa. That is his job, to protect you and make sure he looks both ways to make sure that both of you get across the street safely. Yeah. That is literally the definition of submission. Yeah. And when we take out words like control, when we take out things like no voice, when we take out words like, you know, like control is such a big one. When we take those words out and strip out those words when we're talking about submission, it may be an easier pill to swallow. Yeah. And when trust is there, it makes it easier to submit.
It does.
Now, again, do I believe that it is synonymous? No, it is not, because you can still trust, but then feel like, you know, I think about it like us being the oldest girls, right?
Yeah.
You know, a lot of times we were doing things just because, like routine.
We were told,
routine, like
and expected,
and like it kind of like developed and shaped who we were. We were a lot of times ambitious and like independent and things like that. And so when we first got married, it might have been more difficult. Might have been more difficult to switch those things off, right? Because again, so that's not even trauma. That's just necessary. That's just again how we were shaped and raised, right? But I think again, when you're coming from the caveat of, this person has my best interest at heart and has not shown me reasons not to trust them, I am going to support the decisions that they make, because again, it's going to be mutually beneficial.
And I think that is that is at its core. Yeah. The key. Yeah. If you believe that you are on this ship or this plane or on this vehicle going towards goals that you both have already agreed on, and you know that this man is capable of doing that, and I don't like the, you know, I guess this can be a little bit controversial. Maybe we could talk about this at a different time, but that whole like earning trust, in reality, some people don't feel like you need to earn trust, and people feel like you do. I'm kind of more so like, oh, you gotta like show me that I can give my life over, put my life in your hands, you know. That's good. And so it's like, but once that's established, you know, and that might be hard. Like that might be hard for some people to establish that. That's good. I know that he can make good decisions on behalf of us. I know that he's capable, right? But it's like once that is established, submission becomes a breeze, you know. And I'm a big internal person. I'm a big like, you don't have to do something to make me do something, right? But in this case, it's, you know, I guess there are ways around it, but it's like, okay, can I be submissive if my man has not showed me that yet? Am I able to change my heart's posture to be able to submit to whatever you're trying to do? Like you might make some mistakes, or you might be growing in your
not with your microphone not trying to submit.
Come on, microphone. Come on, microphone, you need to submit.
What is
happening? We're gonna cut this out. But he might need time to get into that role or understand even what he needs to do to be able to lead, you know. So it's like maybe there is some work there that you have to do on your own to be more in that like co-pilot mentality. And like as you talked about the transition from being like, you know, the first daughter, the first child, I'm the project manager. I run things. Like I'm the one that decides what's going on and where we're moving. Like especially my parents getting older, it's always like, Mommy, what you think? Or Mommy, handle this, or Mommy, do that. But it's like in my marriage, I have to communicate that. Like with my brothers, I don't have to communicate with them. Like
This is what we're doing.
Hey guys, we're gonna be here for be here, be square. But with my husband, I gotta be like, okay, babe, like,
yeah.
This is what I'm thinking. What you think? You know.
Yeah,
so it's
yeah.
like, but it should go both ways.
Absolutely.
But still, it's
Yeah.
like there's a different approach that I would take.
Yeah.
As the co-pilot.
Yeah.
Versus being the pilot.
That's good. And I think ultimately, you know, that's what I really like love about this topic, because I think that when we kind of deconstruct and pull out the root of what this is, it has nothing to do with gender roles. It has nothing to do with control. It has nothing to do with you're here and I'm here.
Yeah.
It's complete alignment.
Yeah. And it's another thing people talk about now is like divine femininity. And they're like, femininity is a type, again, no correlation. I'm not going to say no correlation.
Yeah.
It might be some correlation, yeah, because when you're masculine, you're more this, more that. But submission is, again, it's a biblical concept.
Yeah, it is.
And it is about submitting to your husband as your husband submits unto the Lord.
Right.
That's just a full stop.
It's a full stop.
It's a authority hierarchy.
Yeah.
It's a hierarchy of authority.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's not really just about like, oh, I want to be soft, or I want to be taken care of, I want to be loved. That is more in the gender roles bucket. That is the gender role bucket.
That's good.
Not necessarily the submission bucket.
Yeah. So I think that's a good segue just into like the relationship gems, even though we talked about a lot of the stuff that we feel is important in this topic. But I think that like at the root of it, what do you can use biblical references, whatever the case may be, what do you feel submission is?
So, I mean, I can talk about like before and like after, you know, my discussion and my studying.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like I did used to feel like submission was the control and the like, I have to serve him on a tray every time he eats. He needs to and he wants his fufu hot when he walks in the door.
Oh, you getting the water?
Yeah, then you have to put the water to wash his hands.
Nah.
Like, I used to think that was what submission was, because I feel like that is how in our culture, that's how it's portrayed.
Yeah.
I wasn't raised in a household like that.
Yeah.
So I didn't really know what submission in those terms look like.
Yeah.
And so it's now that I'm older and like having these conversations and reading up on it more myself, that I'm realizing it's simply just giving someone else the final say.
Yeah.
That's how I look at it now. Okay. Like I have an opinion. I'm gonna tell you my opinion. I'm gonna tell you how I feel. I'm gonna tell you what I think we should do. Yeah. And because you're asking me, my husband will ask me like, babe, what do you think? What you think? Like even anything for the kids, like where the kids go to school, where should we like. Any big, small, he's always going to ask my input, and I'm going to give him my input every time. Yeah. You know, but it's at the end of the day, he has the final say, and that's just how I view it. Yeah. Like that is the authority he has. Yeah. When we're making big choices, he has a final say, and oftentimes because my husband does love me, because my husband does value how I feel, I'm gonna get my way.
Not with you.
Not every time. I'm not always gonna get my way.
Good.
But
don't get my way all the time.
More often than not. I'm big purr. Big purr. So, you know, I'm not trying to flex or nothing, but you know what I'm saying?
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. But like I gave you an example the other day, like how something so small, like I wanted to do something and it was like credit repair. And I wanted to do credit repair, and I am impulsive by nature, so I was like, I'm just gonna do it. And so I had told him like, babe, what you think? You know, I want to just do it. He was like, let's think about it. Let's do. And at first, I was like kind of annoyed a little bit because I was just like, it's not that serious. Like, I just want to get this thing done and over with. Yeah. And he was like, give me some time. Yeah. Let me do my research, and let me, you know, I'll get back to you. He hasn't gotten back to me yet. Babe, get back to me. But to me that was showing submission, because I could have just been like,
I'm doing it.
Yeah, like babe, all right, like you researching. Why you researching? I'm just gonna send this man send the wire. But I said, okay, I'm gonna let him do his research. I'm gonna let him figure out, because at the end of the day, I always want him to feel valued in my decision making. I always want him to feel like, because I want him to value me. Yeah. So I feel like it's just it's
a give and take.
Yeah, reciprocity.
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
if I can't expect something from him that I'm not willing to give.
That's it.
So
That's
if he wants to have a say in what I'm doing with my credit, then yeah, you can have a say.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like at the end of the day, you want the best. You don't want me to get God.
I was just about to say, and not even that though, but I feel like ultimately he's not saying no because he wants you to like
suffer. Like my credit to crash.
Literally. He's doing it because it's like, let me go through all the options.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, that's literally the definition of like submission, right? He is saying, let me make sure Memi is protected in everything. And obviously from a financial standpoint, like what are the pros and cons? And then we'll make the best decision. Because ultimately, you could be right.
Yeah.
And he could be like, okay, babe, let's do what you do. And yes, it might have took a couple weeks longer, whatever. But like ultimately, but you still get it done though. Yeah. And I think that that's like a perfect like analogy to like God, right?
Like just talking about if a woman is better in the finances, and she's in charge of the finances, then that should be okay because you're doing what's best for the family, right? As a unit. Yeah. So I guess my question would be, in that scenario, would you say it would be okay for the wife to be the pilot and the husband to be the co-pilot, meaning the husband is submitting to the wife in general, not just the finances?
So the man's submitting?
Yeah.
No.
I mean, I know the Bible don't say that.
Exactly, so no.
The answer is no.
So the answer is no. So I think that's actually a really good question. So no, because at the end of the day, the wife is. So I think that the question you're asking is twofold, right? I 100% believe that there will be aspects that a woman is better at. Generalization. When we think about kids and rearing, right? We think we know there are things that women innately do better, or not even do better, but are more inclined to notice, or things like that. You think about a crying baby. Oftentimes a mother can pick up on the sound of a crying baby and understand what the baby needs at that time. This is a crying baby because they're hungry, because they need the diaper change, or whatever the case may be. And a man can like literally not even tune it out, but just think it's crying and think the baby's being annoying, for lack of a better word. And that is not like just a generalization. There's like research behind that, right? And
it's biological.
Biological, right? There's an innate. Yes, I mean that's in the womb of a mother. You know what I'm saying?
So if it enters your body, they're gonna have a different.
So you
connection.
understand, right? And so in things, in situations like that, in situations where like a friend, like I have a girl family who, you know, she is an accountant by training. So finances come very easy to her, budgeting, all of that, money management, it's her forte, it's her career.
It's her thing.
So my thing is, if I am a man, right, it's not me being submissive to my wife. It is the understanding that because I know this is for the betterment of my family, it is better, it is wiser to refer to my wife on this specific topic. Yeah. And it's still alignment, right?
And it doesn't make a man weak either.
It absolutely does not make a man
smart.
Like, again, like I think this mindset of like this mindset of control, I think it always goes back to control. Like, what are you holding on to that you feel like you have to do this? And I think it goes back, I think you said heart's posture, right? What is your heart's posture behind this decision that you have to hold on to? Because ultimately, if it is for your family and it's to make your family better, it's supposed to increase or move your family forward, why would you want to hold on to something that you're not necessarily good at, or your wife is better suited to handle?
Yeah. Or resent her, right? That happens too. Like, you know she's better at it, but then you resent her because it puts you in the quote unquote inferior position. Yeah.
And to me, I feel like that is, again, if we're stripping away gender roles, this has nothing to do, like, because I am better with money doesn't make me a bad provider. Like, doesn't make me a bad provider because my wife is better at money. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like, it has nothing to do with the other. One has nothing to do with the other. And I think, again, like, that's when we go back to this, like, our thoughts about, like, not every marriage is the same. Yeah. There are husbands who are, like, equally as good at child rearing as the wife. You know, I feel like both of our husbands are excellent with our kids. Very good. You know what I'm saying? Like, where we don't feel like uncomfortable.
Even that example you said about, like, hearing a crying baby, Dapo would have took that personal because he's like, I hear the baby crying.
I know what it's talking about.
And that made me sleep.
But that's what I'm saying. and that's what I'm saying, not to generalize, because
Yes,
obviously I don't want to
yes.
ever generalize. And the thing about like our platform, yes, we are two women, but we really, really, really are. We're never coming from the perspective of just the woman. We're always trying to think about
of both sides.
Both sides.
Yeah.
And obviously we don't
try.
have a male perspective,
Yeah.
but we do our best to make sure that we're talking about like the issues from a relationship standpoint, not from a woman's standpoint, from a relationship standpoint, issues that you will see on both sides. But obviously we're speaking from experience, and so that is from a woman's perspective. But I think that again, it is a mandate for a woman to submit to her husband, and that a man submits to God. So again, if there is that continued hierarchy and that continued alignment, it's submission all around, to me.
Yeah.
That's just kind of where I'm at with it.
That's good.
Yeah. So, ultimately, takeaways.
I had one more question.
Oh, what was the question?
So we talked about switching, like if that works. But do you think a marriage can work without submission? If there was basically, I mean, the answer is kind of, if there was like no pilot. If it was like we're both
literally
pilots.
Answered your question.
If we were not no pilots, but both pilots. Like we're co-pilots. Like I'm a co-pilot, you a co-pilot. Nobody got the final say.
That's what but that can't work.
Yeah.
Like, what are we playing? Rock, paper, scissors every time to see who answers a question?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, who makes a decision?
We need a tiebreaker.
There
has to be a tiebreaker.
It does not work that way.
Yeah.
Like, and the thing is, ultimately, like, at the end of the day, I'm always going to come from the perspective, like the biblical perspective, because I feel like for me, that's what I'm rooted in. Do you know what I'm saying? But I do believe like that is where issues come up, right? And I feel like that's another episode when we talk about like red flags and green flags. Yeah. Like you coming into like
off script.
Yeah, I'm just saying you going into situations where like y'all not on the same, like I have a degree in piloting, that probably is the wrong word to say, and you aviation, sorry, thank you. I have and we both want to be the pilot.
Yeah.
It's like we're not aligned.
Yeah.
And you know that.
Yeah. Alignment.
But you wanna bend and say you can fly the plane.
Yeah. Like sit back,
my guy. Like sit back. You know what I'm saying? It just makes no sense. And I feel like again, like when people say that, like when we want to bend and say things like, oh no, we can both do it, but why?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Again, if we're stripping away
that humility, that's a word that we have not used today.
Come on now.
And that is a very important word in the topic.
Humility, selflessness, accountability, respect, all of these words to me define submission.
Yeah.
And if you are doing that, like, no, a husband is not submissive to his wife, but he is still having to be accountable, having to have self-respect, having to have selflessness to someone, to God. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And if that is happening, everyone is being submissive. So in that regard, yes, everybody's being submissive, but no, my husband should not be submissive to me.
Yeah.
He should not.
Yeah.
I should be submissive to him.
I can't even handle that.
Yeah.
So
it's responsibility. It comes with responsibility at the end of the day.
Nah.
But then 2 days ago you tell me I'm not submissive. I am not submissive. You are.
I always thought I was more of like a egalitarian.
Stop,
that's the word. That's always where I thought I was just equal. Like where
and you can be equal in all of those responsibilities. In gender roles, we can be equal because I think both of us have husbands who are like very hands-on with the children, very hands-on with how the upkeep of the house.
Yeah.
But then also are providers in a different sense. You know what I'm saying? So I feel like yes, we have egalitarian marriages, but that's when it comes to gender roles.
Yeah.
But when it comes to like authority,
yeah.
I think in both, and I can speak for you. I think we both are submissive to our husbands.
Yeah.
You know, and that's not on any type of like, I'm better than the next woman or anything. I just think that for us, and we've seen the benefits of it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like we've seen the benefits of being submissive to our husbands.
Yeah. I think it's a journey, right? Like if you are a woman in a marriage and you want to be submissive and you want to get to that point, number one, it's possible to do by yourself, but it's hard because we talked about the responsibility that the husband also has in that submission like what the Bible says. The Bible says the husband has a role and the wife has a role. So it's hard to have one without the other, you know? And it's even hard. It's hard for a husband to be the leader and really like love and cover his wife if his wife is not being submissive.
That's right.
So it goes both ways. So it's something that both people need to work on. The husband and the wife should be working on this together. So if you have a church home, maybe seek out some marital counseling with your pastor. That would be my recommendation.
And then also, like, as we kind of close out, I think to me, submission is not a conversation that should be had after you get married.
Agreed.
Like, this should have been a conversation.
Agreed.
Like we have conversation cards coming out. Shout out to that. Get them, link in bio, all that good stuff. But like, that is a question that I think is so imperative, and it's a question that needs to be had. What are your views on submission?
Yeah.
Because you see problems down the line. Like, you see problems down the line when you have not had these type of conversations, and I don't know your stance and you don't know my stance.
Yeah.
Because if you're coming as a man, from the perspective of control, I am the guy on top, I'm the boss, I'm the head honcho, and what I say goes without consideration for my partner, and then you as the woman are like, I don't listen, I make money, I'm an equal, blah blah blah, then y'all both have different views on submission.
It's not gonna work.
And it's going to be difficult. I'm not gonna say it's not gonna work, but it's gonna be difficult.
It's gonna be difficult.
It's gonna be real difficult. You know what I'm saying? So I feel like, again, we are not, yes, submission is a conversation that society is talking about just more and more and more in general, but we're coming from a place of like, this is what has worked for us, and this is the reason why we do it. And ultimately, yes, I'm submitted to my husband, but my husband still, it's not end all be all with my husband. My husband still has somebody to answer to as well.
That's
you know. So any closing thoughts for you?
No closing thoughts for me. I'm a soft girl. I'm a soft girl thing.
Girl. Until Dapo.
Until Dapo be like, no, and I'll be crying.
Yeah.
But yeah, but yeah, no, I don't know. Like, I love this conversation we had, and I'm glad we had it or sharing this conversation with you guys, because it's something that we have been talking about a lot more, a lot lately. We've been talking about submission and just like how to separate it from what society calls it and what society thinks of it as. It's not separated from gender roles in your head. Gender roles is one thing, submission is another thing. So once you're able to do that and realize that submission is basically just giving someone else the final say and allowing someone else to have the final say, being humble, being selfless, and realizing that in order for all of this to work, y'all have to have the same vision.
Yeah.
You don't have to have the same path to get there or the same thought process on how to get there, but the end goal should be the same. Like Lara brought up the example of her son's school. At the end of the day, Lara and Tala want a successful child. That's the end goal. So whatever we are doing in the middle of it is up for discussion.
Yeah.
It's up for discussion. I can allow him to have the final say, but at the end of the day, what we both want is for our son to be successful.
Yeah.
And so I just feel like when you have that shared goal, it's easier to just, let things go, like leave it, right? So
yeah, for me, I would say submission is something that requires patience. It is something that requires grace. Submission is not like we say we're submissive as if like we started off like, oh my gosh, I'm just going to do whatever my man says. No, it requires like it requires even forgiveness, because our husbands don't always get it right. You know what I'm saying? Like, and that's just in general. They don't always get it right. But ultimately, if I'm coming from the posture like, he's doing this for my family, he's doing this for me, he's not just thinking about himself, I should come from a place of like, I can forgive him if he doesn't get it right this time. Because
give him grace.
9 times out of 10, he is trying to get it right. And he is getting it right.
And God is giving him grace.
And God is giving him grace. So I feel like, when I am able to show him that I'm listening to his authority, and authority just means his perspective, that I'm respecting him.
Yeah.
I'm giving him that respect. And to me, when he feels respected, he wants to do better. He wants to keep doing right.
He feels like, yeah, like my wife has bought in.
Yeah, like I gotta make sure I deliver.
Right.
You know, which is why they always say, you don't know what I'm going through.
Yeah,
you don't know what I'm going through.
She on my back.
She on my back. You know what I'm saying? So ultimately, you know, it's a conversation that we want to continue having. Like we know there's going to be a part 2. We know it might be a little controversial.
We want a guy on here next time.
We're gonna have a guy on here, like just because again, it's heavyweight, right? Like we're talking about from our perspective, but a guy who takes that, who is the leader and takes it seriously, that is something that we're definitely going to have on here. Stay tuned for that. But we appreciate you guys, you know, staying locked in with this episode on submission. Always like, comment, and subscribe. And obviously we want to know, what are your thoughts? Like, is submission for you? How do you define submission? And we want to hear from you. This is an ongoing conversation. Thanks for tuning in to another episode from Chats from the Peak.